Welcome to the Tea Mind. I'm Erica, and this is your weekly pause to put the kettle on, slow down, and reconnect with what really matters. Welcome to this week's episode, and today we are chatting about better pauses, not just stopping, not just resting, but really intentional life shaping pauses. Because I think it's time that we really woke up to the stress epidemic. It's time that we stopped treated stress like background noise and like something to be proud of, because it isn't. It has a real cost, and many of us are already paying it. So let's grab your tea and get into this week's episode. So, we live in a world that worships the grind, the hustle, the spreadsheet, back to back Zooms, endless productivity hacks, trying to get more and more fast at doing things. But somewhere along the way, success became synonymous with being overbooked, overtired, and completely over it. And I know this story well because it used to be mine. In my 30s, my business was thriving, my children were small, my days were crammed with tasks, delegations, obligations. I was busy, 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 and I told myself that that meant that I was successful and I was doing it right. But inside, I was slowly unraveling, and stress had become my autopilot. And like many of us, I brushed it off, said I was a bit run down, and just kept going, kept pushing through, and just shrugged and laughed off about how busy I was. But let's be clear, stress might start off as normal, but left unaddressed, it can cause serious problems. According to the mental wellbeing charity Health in Mind, and full disclaimer, I am a trustee of this wonderful charity, chronic stress can impact every arena of our lives, whether it's our bodies, our minds, our relationships, our work. And it can leave us often feeling overwhelmed, panicked, and stuck, like with that unable to move forward feeling. But here's the thing, stress doesn't always come from big trauma. Sometimes it's 1,000 tiny things. From the moment you wake up in the morning, when your alarm clock goes off, you grab your phone, check your emails, juggling work, caregiving, finances, navigating transitions. The world's in a constant state of flux. Even just trying to keep the house clean, we don't realise, but all that quiet accumulation can quite easily pile up into a massive mountain. And in my own life, stress didn't break me, but my back almost did. And I've always had back problems since my days as a lawyer in London, but it got so debilitating at one point that my consultant, when I used to be a lawyer, told me to lose the desk job. So I did. I did as I was told, and I opened my tea business, Etiquette. But as my business grew, I realised I was spending more and more time at my desk, piling on the stress, and the pain in my back was building and building and screaming out for attention. But I kept pushing on through until I realised that actually I hadn't actually escaped the stress of law. I just swapped desks. And the stress had stayed in my busyness and it had seeped into my body with no way out. It was the tension in my shoulders, my clenched jaw, racing thoughts, digestive issues. The signs were there, but I was too busy to listen and I had tuned them out. And Health in Mind, and I will link to resources in the show notes, but they outline how stress shows up physically, whether that's in exhaustion, digestive trouble, trouble sleeping, anxiety, irritability. Our bodies inevitably become the storage lockers for every ignored emotion and every worry that you're swallowing internally. But the moment I paused, and I mean truly paused, something remarkable started to happen. And it didn't happen overnight, but cumulatively, it did have an effect. I started to feel again, not just emotionally, but physically. My breath started to deepen, my muscles started to soften, and that constant swirl of anxiety began to slow. And it was like finding the off switch to a machine that had been running too hot for too many years. And this stillness didn't find me in a yoga class or on a far-flung magical retreat somewhere, but it began on the day that I started to meditate. Not perfectly, not even consistently at first, but I sat long enough to realize that I hadn't actually felt my body properly in years. And I began to couple those pauses with tea, a simple cup of tea without any emails, no multitasking, just noticing the steam, hearing the sound of the kettle, feeling the weight of the mug in my hands, and it felt like something ancient was slowly beginning to stir within me. And very slowly over time, that chaos started to calm. And I noticed after a few months that I felt less stressed and my back felt a lot better. I was able to move with more ease and less pain. And I wasn't cured. Life is still messy, stress still visits, like everybody. But now I have something that most of us are never taught to look for: a rhythm. And here's the paradox: the more that we chase efficiency, the less we allow for recovery. And I think we've confused speed with effectiveness these days. But the truth is, your nervous system doesn't thrive when it's in constant motion. It needs some sort of rhythm, some sort of push and pull, some stretch and softening, doing and resting, just like nature, just like the seasons. And the research, time and time again, reminds us that when stress starts to accumulate and build up without any form of release, it just compounds and compounds over time. And it affects how we think, how we feel, and how we behave. And often we don't even know it until the body screams. So, what do we mean by a better pause? Well, it's not crashing onto the sofa with your phone in your hand, doom scrolling, and it's not mindless snacking, but a better pause is something more intentional where you're really present, quiet, and brief enough to be able to be doable on a daily basis, but long enough to make a difference. So this week, I offer up a little tea routine that might help you reset your nervous system. And as always, it only takes 3 minutes, the same amount of tea, the same amount of time it takes to scroll past 100 lives on social media. Step one is to choose your tea with intention. Work out what you're looking for today. What do you need? Is it calm? In which case, perhaps try some sort of herbal infusion like lemon and ginger. Perhaps you're wanting more energy, so maybe try a green tea like the Energized Mind or some other green tea. Or maybe you're looking for more clarity and focus, in which case try a black tea, maybe like ginger gut balance, which I am loving this week. And then step two, breathe with your kettle. Inhale for 4, exhale for 6, as long as it's comfortable for you, remembering to try and keep your exhale longer than your inhale. And let this become your new signal. The boiling water is your permission slip to slow down. And then as you brew your tea, just slowly start to watch your leaves unfurl and notice how they slowly open up. They soften, they shift shape, and let that be a reminder that you can release in the same way when you slow down. And then as you sip your tea, slowly, without distractions, holding the cup with both hands, just let all your senses come into focus and let the warmth of the tea seep into your palms. And notice that your breathing can slow. And then ask yourself a grounding question. Perhaps something like, where can I give myself permission to soften today? So, what if your next great idea doesn't come from pushing harder, but from actually pausing better? What if your body has been trying to speak to you for years, but you've been too busy to hear? And what if well-being isn't the reward for finishing everything on your to-do list, but it's actually the foundation for doing anything at all? I think it's really vital that we recognise that stress isn't weakness, it's a signal. It's signalling to us that something matters, something is needing attention. But ignoring it and pushing on through, numbing it out, that doesn't have a good ending. And it can lead to breakdowns and all sorts of bad outcomes. So I think we need a new normal, one where rest has a rebrand, if you like, one where rest isn't seen as indulgent, pausing isn't lazy, and stillness becomes a real strategy to aim for. So the takeaway for this week, I encourage you to try that little tea routine and to realize that you don't have to escape your life to start to heal. You just need little moments where you can meet yourself fully. And it starts with one pause today, 3 minutes, one kettle, one cup of tea. And let the tea remind you that you are allowed to soften. You're allowed to slow down, to sip, and to savor. Because pausing isn't the opposite of progress. It's actually where true progress begins. So until next time, happy sipping. That's it for today. I hope something landed, I hope something lifted, and if it did, share it with someone who needs a pause too. If you enjoyed this, you'll love the Tea Mind Substack, where the kettle's always on and we can connect more deeply. Until next time, stay present, sip slowly, and thanks for listening.